This is segment 2 of my first it's not really post-pandemic. We're not really past it. We're in the middle of it. So this is the Monique Marvez Show. My first podcast since coronavirus became a thing. It was starting to become a thing when I recorded my last podcast. I love it when a plan comes together right before I jumped the plane to New Zealand and the world shut down and I barely made it home from Sydney, Australia. So here we are on June the 10th, and I give the date, but it really doesn't matter because I don't do that kind of a show. It's not a news show. When I was on KFI, it was very interesting because there was sort of a philosophy there that you had to make people think that they had to listen every day or they missed something, that your show had to be warm bread. And to be very honest with you, that's the opposite of comedy. In comedy, they tell you when you're filming a special for Showtime, you know what, use topics that you think are big, that are going to last a long time. If you're going to talk about the news, it has to be big news. A story that's going to linger in the minds and imaginations of people for a long time, so that when they watch this special, it doesn't feel dated. And the truth is that for me, it's somewhere in the middle. I'm not trying to be evergreen. I'm not trying to have things sound, foreverness. I just speak about what I think is important. And what is important to me today was important to me at 30 and will probably be important to me at 60. They're just those sort of timeless topics. I don't really care to put out hot bread every day. And to be honest with you, I never really keep up with the news cycle on a day-to-day. There's a whole lot of stories that people come up to me and go, "Did you hear about the blah, blah?" And I'm like, no. And evidently to them, it was a very, very big deal. It wasn't to me. If I saw a headline on my Apple sign-in, and to be very candid, especially when I feel there's a political agenda behind the headline, and it doesn't matter what side of the aisle. I don't like agendas. I don't like when I feel that they're trying to lead me to some conclusion rather than just tell me objectively what's going on. I'm not a fan of what I call information. It's not information. It's tweaked. It's designed to keep you coming back to what happened, what happened, what happened. Even some of the headlines that I've read recently, one of them, and I know you guys are watching, so now you can see the magic behind the machine, which is zero magic. Now it used to be when I was on the radio, I had stacks of paper around me, but I don't like wasting paper, and B, I don't need the whole story around me. So here's a headline that I read yesterday. Dr. Fauci says coronavirus turned out to be, in quotes, my worst nightmare, and it isn't over. Now, I haven't read the whole article, and it could have even been that they quoted him out of context. It could have been that he said this was a scenario that could have been my worst nightmare. And he could have said, it's getting a lot better, but it's not over. Because I know that the press does that.
This is something that I've often described, Steve, and not to be hyperbolic about it. It really is the perfect storm and an infectious disease and public health person's worst nightmare.
But the fact that they're saying that, let's be honest, it's been terrible. It is highly transmissible. That's it. A lot of people got it, and a lot of people have passed, and I'm not diminishing that. But if you want to say something is my worst nightmare isn't 100,000 or 200,000. It's the plague. It's a third of the planet going down, or even 20%, or even 1%, or even 0.5%. But none of that's occurred. We have a very contagious, potentially deadly disease. I've lived long enough to remember the late 60s when we had the Hong Kong flu, which killed a lot of people. And it was, not good. So let's back up the train and decide, because we get to decide, yes, we have crossed the Rubicon, but we haven't crossed the Rubicon just because. It's because there is a perfect storm right now, and that during 9/11, there was no social media. During the Hong Kong flu, there was no cable. The way that things spread now, pun intended, this is absolutely the disease for the times. Think about it. If everything I mean, how many times have you heard the expression going viral? People want to go viral. They want things to jump and spread. We all saw the video of that couple's first dance that broke into, Baby Got Back or whatever, or Letary and Milton, or whatever we saw that we loved. My New Haircut, which turned into Jersey Shore. We've seen these things, and we thought they were hilarious. But think of the world we live in, how fast and global and leveling everything is. And that being said, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Did we conjure this disease? Is it part of the matrix of what we have going on in the world now? And that no one can sit still? No one can put their phone down? Imagine when I was a kid, there was a whole thing about how you shouldn't put your purse down on the baby changing table, and the germs in the bathroom. And every once in a while you would do a science project in high school about germs at a water fountain, and, germs, and whatever else. And we all grew up with that. We all, wash your hands and do that. Look, we know that the world is a dirty place full of fun guys and fun guys. Both you have to watch out for. But that being said, it's part of life. And little by little, I've watched our society get to a point where, was it better when kids ate dirt and ate mud pies and played in, playgrounds with metal monkey bars that would occasionally knock some random kid's teeth out? I don't know. I can't answer that. But on the other hand, we've gotten to the point now where, I've gotten on planes before COVID where you see parents, they put, plastic liners on the table tray, and they wipe the kids' hands, and, and kids ride tricycles with helmets. And it's like, I don't know that this is good. I don't know that completely protecting ourselves from everything all the time is the best thing for the species. However, because there is balance, COVID is highly... By the way, I had a COVID test yesterday. It's a drive-through. It's bizarro. You drive up to a tent, and some person coming out in a hazmat suit, and literally it's like a suit with a plastic shield on their face, leans in your car window and sticks a giant, skinny kind of Q-tip way up your nose, almost to your eye socket. And that's a COVID test. And it's like something out of the dark ages, except you wouldn't be driving a car. But, back in the day when they showed the guys with those long beak masks and the cloaks, I got to be honest, I think I would prefer the long beak mask to the hazmat suit. It's equally sort of charged and scary. And even if I got COVID, I don't think I would die of it. I think I would just be very, very sick. But because I'm having surgery Friday, I had no choice but to take this test. And I took it, and I got the results this morning, and I'm totally fine. Thank the Lord, or whoever you want to thank. If you have an issue with God or Jesus, just add a no. Nobody has an issue with good. So I'm talking about crossing the Rubicon because there's so many things that we're not going to go back from. We're not going to go back to pre-9/11. We're never going to be able to have our loved ones walk us to the gate or greet us with gifts, or it's just, we got used to it. I'm getting used to the mask to the point where when I come home, sometimes I'll be well into my next task. I'll be slicing vegetables and realize, hey, I still have a mask on. No different than when I wore glasses. Sometimes I'd forget and get in the shower and the water would hit my glasses and I'd be thinking, why can't I see? Well, because you took your contact lenses out and put your glasses on, dummy, and then you got in the shower. Because you get used to things. We're going to get used to having COVID in our lexicon like we got used to AIDS and the herpes. We got used to it. I remember when, in the early 80s, before AIDS even. And it's so weird because I remember my entire first conversation about AIDS. It was in 1982. There's certain conversations that you just never forget. I remember the first time I heard about crack. I have a friend who was an investigative reporter in Miami, Amy Huggins. She was on a show called Montage. She actually won like a local Emmy.
You're looking at somebody who couldn't buy a job in television 10 months ago, and I have an awful lot of people to thank for this. If I can get on my soapbox for 1 minute to all you people out there who have the power to hire, don't turn somebody away just because they don't have TV experience. This is what was done without TV experience.
And in end of 86, she did this whole thing, report on crack. And she said, it's cheaper than cocaine, and it's easily accessible, and it's highly addictive, and it's going to decimate entire neighborhoods. I remember her telling me it's going to like cocaine's a little bit of a rich person's drug. This is like poor man's generic cocaine and more addictive. And I remember thinking, that's horrible. And that was in 86. And I remember in 82, my friend April and I were in what's known as sort of the gay district, Montrose of Houston. There was a biker bar called Mary's. I think it even had a motorcycle hanging from chains from the ceiling. But anyway, and she's from Boston, and I can't do a Boston accent. I can't do it well. But I remember her saying, it's a wicked bad disease, Monique. I can't do Boston. And I said, what is it? She said, and this is, granted, this is un-PC. Don't go march on her house or look her up on my Facebook page. It's 1982. You got to keep things in context. And she said, there's this disease, and they're not sure how people get it, but it's really bad, and it's killing the fags. They're dropping like flies. And I was like, what? How can it be singling out one group of people? How does a disease get one group of people? Well, we found out later, the blood transmission, blah, blah, blah. We got it. We figured it out. And a lot of people died, not just homosexuals. A lot of people died. And now we're used to it. And there's a cocktail of drugs that keeps people alive. And now people live with it, and they don't die, and they don't give it to other people. And it's just become mundane. Years and years of rushing waters of fear have smoothed the rocky edges of AIDS. And I think that because things move so much faster and the rushing waters have so much more volume, I think that COVID will be worn down by November, December, when the second wave hits, and it's just, old people and people with pre-existing diseases. And I don't mean to sound callous. I'm just saying it freaks me out how when I was a kid, a mass shooting, what happened at Texas, it was a thing. The news cycle would hang on to significant stories for weeks and do follow-up and go back and talk to families. And that hasn't happened. Does anybody even remember Ferguson? Does anybody remember Charlie Hebdo? Does anybody, I can go on. Stories that were enormous stories. The Texas country concert shooting. Sandy Hook. I can go on. But that being said, we have to decide what information is of value to us to take in, to sort of, rationally think about and make personal decisions. Yes, we have made a global decision to wear masks. I'm for that. Do I like it? No. Do I feel like a dumbass bank robber? Yeah. Do I like seeing myself in the rearview mirror wearing a mask? No. As soon as I get in my car, if I'm alone, I take the mask off. I don't even like looking at myself in the rear view. There's something disingenuous about covering your face. I remember years ago when they would talk about if you went in for a job interview with facial hair or even tinted prescription sunglasses. I used to have a boyfriend that wore very dark tinted prescription sunglasses. He actually had very pretty eyes, but he just thought his glasses made him look cool. They didn't. They made him look shady. So, yes, we've agreed. Let's stand apart. Let's wear masks. Let's Purell our hands every 32 seconds. Let's touch things with our elbows. Let's not shake hands when we meet a new person. All right. But is this my worst nightmare? No, Dr. Fauci, not even close. Not even close. Think about what you're getting worked up about. think about it. Yes, we have crossed a Rubicon, but I got to tell you, this whole movement after George Floyd's death, to me, is far more compelling and interesting than COVID, for a multitude of reasons, of which I'm going to give you the first one. I've been on this planet 57 years. I remember the beginnings, the serious and earnest beginnings of civil rights in the late 60s, just like I remember the Hong Kong flu and the moonshot. I remember things. And this feels different. We have crossed a Rubicon. This can no longer be what we say in Spanish, sí para que te calles, which means, yeah, so you'll shut up. Yeah, sure. Yeah, we're going to do that. Which for 50 years, a lot of people in power have just said, yeah, we're going to look into that. Yeah, that was a bad thing. Yeah, we're going to put a committee together. We have gone way past we're going to put a committee together. We have lost all cabin pressure on, hey, we'll put that up for discussion. Like, I cannot even believe that there's a discussion on the floor right now. Lawmakers are deciding a lynching bill. That's a real thing going on right now in real time. And there's and I'm paraphrasing because I don't sit here with a bunch of notes. You guys know I speak from the heart. But I believe it's Paul Rand is saying, well, it's too broad. It's too broad. You know, a mishandling that results in just injury and bruising shouldn't. No. If it's in your heart, if it is in your heart and mind to even think about moving forward with the physical action of a hate crime, I'm sorry. Now, the concern is that people are going to, my concern, because I'm a rational thinker and I can't believe I'm the first person who thought of it, is like, well, if I'm going to get punished for killing the guy, I might as well kill him. Yeah, there is a concern that some jackass racist idiot would actually think that thought if he's going to get the same time for bruising, choking, harming, hurting an individual as actually lynching him. Yeah, that is a concern. It shouldn't be to a rational individual, but let's be honest. Anybody who's even considering a lynching isn't rational. And I got to tell you, talking about news stories, I have a neighbor who I've lost an enormous amount of respect for. He doesn't know it. Because he asked me if I'd seen the story of how, Mr. Floyd, who I don't know personally, and the police officer, whose name I can't recall because I haven't even committed it to memory. Boys and girls, I can remember what I wore the first day of second grade. It's not that I couldn't remember it if I wanted to. I have made it a point to not watch one frame of that video or familiarize myself with that story any more than I have to know what's going on in the world. I know what happened. I know that some out of his mind, because of nothing else, it has to be death by social media, that some out of his mind policeman, knowing that he was being filmed, put his knee on an African American's neck and left it there for 8 minutes while the man was clearly uncomfortable and said, I can't breathe. Like, I don't even get that. I don't need to see that. I've gotten the details. I know what happened. Okay? I know what happened. And there's a lot of people that are trying to do some sort of crab walk or sideways or backstep into, but. There is no yeah, but. There just isn't anymore. We're out of yeah, buts. We're out of yeah, buts. We finally got over the hill on this. Things are changing. It feels different. We've crossed the Rubicon. That is the end of segment 2 of my not quite post-pandemic first podcast, Monique Marvez Show. Thanks for listening. I'll be back with part 3 shortly.
Tune in to Monique Marvez this Saturday night at 8 Pacific for Talk of Our Times live stream right here on YouTube. After her HBO Max premiere and after 16 days on the road with her mom, she is guaranteed to have a lot to say.